Hey everyone, it's Jen here, and today's topic is Mercury Retrograde. That wonderful event that happens 3 or 4 times a year that gets us all out of whack whenever we start talking about it. This time around, it's not going to be as bad as some of the other times we've had. It's more going to be about an emotional detachment and reassessment, more so than the other aspects. But let's talk about what Mercury Retrograde is on a normal scale, which happens 3 or 4 times a year for about 3 weeks. And the last cycle we had actually ended on March 10th. And this one that we're currently in is from June 18th and going to go through until July 12th of 2020. The next one we are going to encounter is happening on October 14th, right through till November 3rd. So it's going to happen before the Christmas holidays this year. So Mercury Retrograde always talks about communication and problems with communicative items. The planet of Mercury rules communication. So when it goes into a retrograde situation, it sort of screws up communication and communicative issues, as well as travel and legal documents and things that we should not sign, just in case something happens. And it's also not a good idea to start anything new during a Mercury retrograde period, but rather go back and review and redo things that didn't quite work out in the past. So this Mercury retrograde is in the sign of Cancer, and Cancer is quite emotional. And this time is going to be more about giving space. So the traditional situations with Mercury retrograde is miscommunication or misunderstanding and arguments and things happening in that respect. But this time, because it's going to be in emotional Cancer, in that sign of Cancer, it's going to be more about relationships and giving space to people. So you are going to find that you are going to need to find some quiet time. And some of the people around you may also ask to have some space as well. Now, this doesn't mean that people are breaking up and separating. However, it's always good to have your own time, to have some peace and quiet, to reassess, to rethink, to go over things that aren't working out too good, things that we can redo, and things that we can do better. So just so you're aware, if somebody starts flipping out, just take a step back and say, have some space, take some time to think. I'm going to do the same thing, and let's regroup in a little bit. And just taking that space will allow both parties to figure things out. So I'm just going to read a few notes that I've written down here about this Mercury retrograde situation this month, just so everybody's aware what's going on. And then we're going to take a look at the angel cards to see what the angels and the tarot have to say about this time frame as well too. So there are 3 other planets I did want to mention that are also in retrograde right now. So adding Mercury into retrograde is adding the 4th planet. So we already have Venus, which is the planet of love. Saturn and Jupiter are also in retrograde right now. So having 4 planets in retrograde is a little bit crazy and hairy to begin with. So there's a lot of different aspects that's being looked at right now, planetary wise. One thing to keep an eye on is lost passwords in this period of time. You know, sometimes we could lose passwords or things can go wonky on us. We could lose or have dropped calls, important phone calls. And one example that I just experienced the other day was a group that I'm in, an actual course that I'm taking. Logging into the course wasn't showing our course. We couldn't log into it. And that's classic Mercury retrograde situation. It has now been fixed. However, these are things that happen. So make sure you have all your passwords saved in case you get stuck and you can't get in. And just make sure that you have everything sort of ready to go just in case something happens. Make sure you're backing up your computer system. And also one thing to watch out for, Cancer is also, the sign of Cancer, which we're in right now, is also connected to water. So make sure you don't drop your phone in the lake, or if you're in the boat, or even in the toilet. That's happened to me before, dropping a cell phone in the toilet. So just keep an eye out for that as well too, because communication and things that can go wonky will go wonky during Mercury retrograde. One other thing to keep an eye on too is travel. And also contracts and signing contracts. So just avoid signing any big contracts over these next few weeks of time. Try to do that after the 20th of July. And travel, if you are traveling, not many of us are because of the COVID-19, but if you are traveling, make sure you have all your P's and Q's crossed and make sure everything is sorted out prior to travel to make sure everything is clear and sorted. Also, one other thing to mention, our borders here between Canada and the United States are still closed until the 21st of July. So that sort of stops interprovincial and international border crossing. So we don't have to worry too much about the travel around these parts anyway. So one other thing I want to talk about again is, you know, we need to be careful what we're saying and what we're talking about. And with the Mercury retrograde, it's always good to take a stop before you say something, especially in these heated moments with family. Like I mentioned before, some people are going to ask for space or want space or need some peace and quiet. So before you start arguing or before you say something, take a step back and think about what you want to say, and just make sure you're saying it right and you're approaching it right, and how you're going to approach that conversation or what you want to say, just to make sure that nothing is going to go wonky and ununderstood or misunderstood, which can cause a whole other snowball of issues with Mercury retrograde happening. So think about what you want to say, and watch out for drama. And let's use our mantra for this Mercury retrograde as be kind and give space when it's needed. And just a side note, there is the shadow period for Mercury retrograde. We've already been starting to feel these things with Mercury since about the 2nd of June. They will continue on until July 26th. So, you know, all these weird things that are happening with communication, as well as, you know, misunderstandings and, you know, the emotional stuff that's going on, can happen all the way to the end of July. So just keep that aware. Let's take a look at the Angel Tarot and see what comes forth for this period, this Mercury retrograde period, and what the angels want us to know, just so we're a little bit on the ball with what's happening. We've got the Chariot card. That's interesting because it is the 7th major arcana, as you can see. And the 7 here, for me, represents July and the 7th month and over the next 7 weeks of time, which really does make sense. Now, the Chariot card is also ruled by Archangel Metatron. He's one of the big archangels that we have with us, helping us out. And the words on the bottom, I'll just read the words on the bottom and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. It does indicate important achievements will happen. Self-discipline and willpower, very, very big, especially during Mercury retrograde, and public recognition. So the Chariot card, as you can see, the fellow's on the chariot and there's a black and a white horse. So what this means is choices and decisions. Also positive and negative, good and bad, and, you know, having those arguments or having proper things to say. So over the course of July and this Mercury retrograde period, just keep this in mind, that there's always two sides. There's always two different paths you can go, or maybe even more. But make the proper decision and review before moving ahead, because sometimes things can get ahead of yourself and you may just sort of go head on and not realize that maybe the words and the things you're saying are hurting somebody or doing ill instead of doing good. One other thing to mention here, there will be important achievements happening over this Mercury retrograde period. And that always indicates, you know, going back and redoing things. That's doing things. That's what Mercury retrograde is about. Reviewing, redoing, renewing, going back and fixing what didn't work before, reviewing it, and then moving forward with it once Mercury is forward again, is going direct. So there is going to be achievements happening. You're going to go back and you're going to fix things. You might be rebudgeting. You might be applying for a new job due to all this COVID mess moving forward again financially, doing things over again and reviewing things. Also self-discipline and willpower. A lot of us have that COVID-20. We gained those 20 pounds over the last few months. So this is a really important time to remember willpower and self-discipline, especially, you know, if we're trying to get a little bit of exercise and lose a few pounds here and there, but also in terms of keeping our mouth shut when maybe we should, you know, sort of watch what we're saying. So that willpower and self-discipline due to the Mercury and possible misunderstandings. So the next few weeks, they're going to go quick. Things are going to happen pretty quick. With that Chariot card, that tells me things are going to happen quite quickly. And we could find ourselves in situations that we're like, oh, what should I do? Take a step back, relax, find yourself some space, find yourself a little bit of peace and quiet so you can think about things before making big choices and decisions, before opening your mouth and getting into an argument, and make sure you're approaching the things that you want to talk about and communicate with other people about in the right method in order to be kind, and again, keep that space between each other so we don't have arguments and misunderstandings. So I hope this helps answer what's happening over these next few weeks with Mercury retrograde. If you have any questions, you can always contact me directly and we can do a Mercury retrograde reading for you. We can take a look at these next few weeks and the things that you need to be aware of and things that you can watch out for moving forward, just to make sure everything goes through smoothly. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you're looking for any insight on anything else, please let me know. I'm here to help you out. You have a wonderful Mercury retrograde season. I will talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye now.